Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into a really intense period, looking at Arad, Romania between 1919 and 1948.
Right, a time of huge upheaval.
Exactly. And this deep dive focuses on this clash, this real tension between the new Romanian state trying to, well, control religious life.
And sometimes suppress it.
Yeah, suppress it, reorganize it, versus the, frankly, amazing resilience of local communities just fighting to keep their faith and culture going.
And that start date, 1919, is key. You've got the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsing, the Treaty of Trianon. It's not just borders moving on a map.
No, it's much more fundamental.
Absolutely. It literally carves up these massive old church territories, dioceses like Senad, Nagyvarad, Satmar. Imagine one day they're whole, the next they're split across different countries.
Instant chaos for the churches, right?
Yeah.
Organizational, financial.
Complete anarchy. Legally, too. They didn't know where they stood.
And that chaos sets up this contradiction we want you to grasp today. The promises versus the reality.
On paper, things looked okay initially.
You had the Albiulia resolutions, the Paris Minority Treaty, all guaranteeing religious freedom, equality. Sounds good.
But the reality on the ground, very different. The 1923 Constitution immediately threw a wrench in the works.
Not so.
It declared the Orthodox Church privileged, Article 22, and then a 1925 law went further, calling it the leading church.
So equality on paper, but privilege in practice.
Precisely. And that legal tilt, that contradiction, paved the way for the state's first major move against the other churches, a really devastating blow.
Aimed right at their survival.
Right at their finances. We're talking about the agrarian laws, 1919 and 1921.
The land reform laws.
Yes, but these weren't just about redistributing some land. These laws allowed for the complete expropriation of church property, taking it all.
And this basically cut off their funding for schools, charity work, everything.
It broke the model they'd relied on for centuries. Gone.
Okay, let's pause on that because the numbers are just staggering. For the Roman Catholic parishes in Transylvania, Banat, Partium,
Yeah.
what was the loss?
It's almost unbelievable. Out of about 290,000 acres, they lost over 277,000.
Wait, that's
98%.
98% of their land gone.
Yes. You hear that figure, 98%, and it's impossible not to see it as a deliberate policy.
Not just bureaucratic entanglement, a targeted strike.
Absolutely. A financial decapitation.
Yeah.
And others suffered hugely, too. The Unitarian Church lost, 63.5%? The Calvinists, 40.5%?
So the message was clear. Your financial independence is over.
Exactly. And if you want to continue any kind of religious or cultural life, you have to rebuild it instantly from scratch with local money and sheer willpower.
Let's zoom in on the Roman Catholics in Arad then. That massive diocese of Senad you mentioned, it got hit hard by the border changes?
Hit very hard. It covered almost 35,000 square kilometers, nearly 1 million people. And then suddenly it's chopped into pieces, parts in Romania, parts in Hungary, parts in Serbia.
And the leadership, how did they react?
Well, the bishop, Latfelder Gala, he refused to accept it, refused to recognize the new borders, the property seizure.
So what happened to him?
The Romanian state banned him, kicked him out of the territory.
Wow, just banned him.
Yep. And get this, even his final message to his flock, his farewell letter in March 1923, parts of it were censored by the state, deleted.
So controlling the message, too, not just the land.
Total control. But okay, life had to go on. The Romanian part of the diocese, about 160 parishes, maybe 450,000 people, needed structure.
A new structure had to emerge.
It did. Eventually, Canon Agustin Pasha took the lead. He was confirmed as bishop of a new bishopric based in Timișoara in 1930. This followed a concordat, an agreement between the Vatican and Romania in 1929, which sort of stabilized things legally for a while.
Okay, so amidst this high-level chaos and reorganization, what's happening on the ground in Arad itself?
This is where local initiative really shines. Take the Minoret or the Friars Minor.
Right.
They were cut off from their old leadership in Hungary. So what do? They just set up their own regional body in 1926, a Transylvanian Commissariatus Minoritae, basically taking control of their own affairs because they had to.
Self-governance out of necessity.
Exactly. And this is where figures like Dr. Lakatos Otto become so important. He was the parish priest from 1919 right through to 1942.
And he saw the writing on the wall, that formal institutions were under threat.
He absolutely did. He understood that if the state was attacking their property and potentially their schools, they needed to build new centers of gravity, cultural strongholds.
So not just religious services.
No, much more. He oversaw building a Catholic high school, and that school became a key place for Hungarian language education right up until 1948. And crucially, he built the Minorate Cultural Center.
When was that built?
1926. And this wasn't just, a parish hall. It was a strategic move.
How so?
Well, if the state was crushing their other cultural outlets, they could use the protected space of the church grounds to run things, almost like a cultural parallel government for the Hungarian community in Arad.
A shadow state, operating under the church's protection.
You could put it that way. And it worked. That cultural center became the absolute hub for Hungarian public life. The Kolkzi Association met there. The Duminica Publishing House operated from there right up until 48.
So the physical church building and the center next to it became the last line of defense for preserving cultural identity.
Bricks and mortar as a legal shield. It's fascinating.
And while all this is happening, the big structural fights, the cultural pivots, there's also just basic need, right? People needed places to worship.
Oh, absolutely. The city center church in Arad by the 1920s was completely overwhelmed.
How bad was it?
They were running 5 separate liturgies every Sunday morning. 5. Just to try and fit everyone in. We're talking an estimated 25,000 believers trying to attend.
5 liturgies. That tells you something about the grassroots vitality, despite the pressures.
It does, and it meant they had to build new churches, especially in the growing suburbs, which leads to incredible stories of community effort.
Like the McKellica Parish Church.
Exactly. Consecrated in 1929, that church was built almost entirely through community fundraising, just sheer local will.
And there's a specific person tied to that effort, isn't there?
There is an amazing story. A young woman named Rosalia Schmidt. She spent 3 years. 3 years. Traveling all over the place, collecting donations.
3 years. Where'd she go?
Everywhere. Her journey took her from Banat down to the Jiu Valley, through Oltenia, Bucharest, Moldova, across Transylvania. Just imagine the determination. This young woman traveling alone often, across these huge distances, new political lines, just to fund this one church.
That's incredible dedication.
Yeah.
And who was giving the money? Was it just Catholics?
No. And this is really interesting. Her records, her diary, show donations came from everyone.
Really?
Yes. Private individuals, church congregations, Roman Catholics, of course, but also Protestants, Orthodox Christians, even members of the Jewish community chipped in.
So, at the local level, there was this moment of interfaith solidarity.
Yeah.
Facing a common pressure.
It seems so. A kind of grassroots unity driven by shared local need, cutting across the divisions the state was maybe trying to enforce. It's a powerful counter-narrative. The land itself was donated to by HHS Vilmos and Feldes Market.
And this wasn't the only suburban church built then.
No, the momentum was there. The Gradiat Parish Church followed quickly, consecrated in 1930, dedicated to St. Joseph.
Because the city center was still overcrowded.
Still packed. The consecration of the Gradiat Church was apparently a huge event. Reports say 10,000, maybe 12,000 people turned up from Arad and nearby villages.
Wow. That's not just a church opening, that's a public statement. A show of strength.
A very visible demonstration of community presence, definitely. And we should mention the local talent involved, too. A city engineer, Dimitar Laszlo.
He designed some of these.
Yes, he designed the church in Iga, which opened in 1936, and also a smaller chapel out in Cadê Sylvain in the 1930s. So you see local professionals stepping up, too. These were properly built community assets.
Okay, so that covers the Catholics dealing with massive land loss, but finding ways to rebuild and recenter culturally and physically. What about the other non-Catholic groups? How did they fare between 1919 and 48?
It varied, but the pressure was definitely there, just maybe applied differently. The Reformed Church, the Calvinists, they faced similar structural breaks.
Because of the border changes?
Yes. They had to reorganize, too, forming their own district, the Kirali-Hagamelic district. But initially, the Romanian state just ignored their decision.
Ignored it. How does that work as suppression?
It's suppression by administrative deadlock. By not recognizing their structure, the state keeps them in legal limbo, unable to function effectively, just refusing to engage.
Okay. And the Lutherans?
A similar story of frustration, mainly financial. Their leader, Superintendent Frint Lajos, did manage to organize the Hungarian evangelicals who were scattered around, but the state had promised them 100 acres of land.
To give them some financial stability after the reform.
Exactly. And the state just never delivered, never handed over the land.
So, not outright confiscation like the Catholics initially, but a slow squeeze through unmet promises. Deliberate neglect.
Precisely, keeping them financially weak and dependent.
What about the Jewish community in Arad during this time?
Well, they had a strong cultural presence. The 1910 census showed over 7,800 members in Arad, and interestingly, over 96% in the county identified as Hungarian speakers.
So culturally aligned with the Hungarian community.
Largely, yes, but things got much worse for them starting in 1940 under the military dictatorship. The pressure shifted from maybe cultural or economic to outright persecution.
For darker turn.
Much darker. And their community resilience then pivoted towards humanitarian aid. They were incredibly brave in helping about 1,600 Jewish immigrants who were fleeing the horrors unfolding in northern Transylvania and Bukovina, providing vital support.
A different kind of resistance. And the Baptists. You mentioned they faced legal hurdles.
Yeah, the Baptists were growing fast, spreading rapidly, but the state seemed determined to keep them contained. The 1928 Religion Act was key here.
What did it do?
It refused to recognize them as a full denomination. They were only allowed the status of an association.
Which sounds minor, but legally.
Legally, it made them much more vulnerable. It meant they didn't have the same rights or protections as recognized churches.
And that vulnerability was exploited later.
Tragically, yes. Marshal Antonescu's regime banned them completely in 1943, outlawed them.
On what grounds?
The official reason was that they were a threat to state security, which seems unlikely.
Quite a stretch. And architecturally, they had a distinct approach.
Yes, interestingly, they deliberately built their prayer houses without towers or crosses, perhaps to seem less like a challenge, less overtly church-like to the authorities, blending in a bit more.
So across the board, we see pressure, restrictions, financial strain, except for one group.
The clear exception, the Orthodox Church.
Privileged by the Constitution.
Yes, the 1923 Constitution gave them that privileged status, and by 1925, they were officially the leading church. So, while others struggled, the Orthodox Diocese of Arad actually thrived.
How?
They continued publishing their long-running newspaper, Byzerica Equala, Church and School, right up until 1948. And their bishop at the time, Andrei Majuro, was even known for supporting ecumenism, some level of cooperation between churches, which was quite rare.
So a completely different experience compared to the others.
Night and day. Which brings us to the final and perhaps darkest phase of this period, the post-war years and the rise of communism.
Right, after 1945. Was there any initial hope things might improve for the restricted groups?
There was a glimmer. That restrictive 1928 Religion Act was abolished in 1945. So legally, some barriers came down. But the Orthodox Church kept its leading status. And more importantly, the new communist authorities were rapidly consolidating power. And they had their own ideas about religion.
And one group suffered a particularly brutal fate in this consolidation.
The Greek Catholic Church. This is a really tragic story.
Tell us about them. They had a significant history in Romania, right?
Hugely significant. They'd played a major role in shaping Romanian national identity, especially in Transylvania. And they were the main link between Romania and the Vatican, diplomatically.
So a major institution with deep roots.
Absolutely. And yet the state just abolished them dictatorially by decree.
Stuff like that.
Just like that. Decree number 358, March 30th, 1948, the Greek Catholic Church ceased to legally exist in Romania.
What happened to their property? Their followers?
All their property, churches, schools, everything was forcibly transferred to the Orthodox Church. Their bishops were arrested, every single one. And this affected about 1.5 million followers across the country.
1.5 million people suddenly had their church declared illegal and absorbed by another.
Overnight, it was a stunning display of absolute state power over religious life, a complete absorption into the state-preferred structure.
And the crackdown didn't stop there.
No. The net tightened around others, too. In Arad, the last Minorite monk at the monastery, János Duma, was arrested in 1949.
The end of that long Minorite presence.
Effectively, yes. And cultural life was hit hard, too. Publications were banned. Even a Zionist magazine, Intor Syria Kasa, Return Home, only managed to put out 2 issues in 1946 before being shut down.
So what's the final picture as this era closes around 1948?
It's a picture of the state achieving almost total control. You had some groups like the Baptists and Adventists trying to reorganize after 45, trying to get official permission.
Seeking legitimacy from the new regime.
Yes, but ultimately the consolidating communist government saw these neo-Protestant groups, really any group outside its direct control, as fundamentally suspect, enemies even. So the period ends not with recovery, but with the state imposing its will completely.
Looking back across those 3 decades, 1919 to 48, What's the main takeaway for you?
For me, it's the sheer grinding resilience needed just to exist, to maintain your community, your identity, your property against relentless state pressure from massive land confiscation down to petty censorship.
And the power of local action, that story of Rosalia Schmidt.
Exactly. Traversing the country for 3 years to fund one church. It shows how localized, determined effort could sometimes overcome these huge systemic obstacles, even if just for a while.
It's incredibly powerful.
And I think we have to remember the fate of the Greek Catholics, an institution so central to Romanian identity, such a key link to the West via the Vatican,
Just erased by decree.
erased and absorbed in 1948. It's a stark reminder of the ultimate power the totalitarian state wielded. No history, no contribution seemed to matter in the end.
It really drives home the shift. So here's something for you, the listener, to think about.
hmm
When you hear that statistic, 98% land loss for some Catholic groups, how does that reshape your understanding of religious and cultural survival in 20th century Central and Eastern Europe?
Right. It forces you to see that every act of cultural persistence, every church built, every book published later under communism wasn't just happening. It was an act of defiance against a system designed to crush it.
And maybe ask yourself, did that intense level of state repression, that stripping away of assets and identity, ultimately sow the seeds for some of the conflicts and tensions that continue to plague the region for decades? Something to ponder until our next deep dive.